huge part of the whole energy of the Lovingtons. And so when he passed over, it was like I'm running like this, or it's like we were together, just whew, running or dancing, and all of a sudden, shoo, it's like disappeared, like, you know, and even since that moment, that's what's so crazy. And still, even since that moment, I haven't been able to touch him physically again, but I have felt his presence constantly, and I talk to him and I ask him advice and questions, and sometimes I feel like he put some traits into my heart when he passed on. It's like I gained some extra traits that maybe it's just the way I imagine things, but that he just passed over into my heart, but I had to grow in lots of ways because he fulfilled this very important role. We were, left arm, right arm when it comes to the music and the band. And so that winter, as I was going through it, I did this exercise that I've done a lot in life. And I actually have done some assemblies with kids, and I've done a thing called, and the subject of my assembly, the theme is follow the tingle. And because it's the way to describe the way my life has been led is I follow the tingle, like right here in the heart, and I listen to what gives me that tingle, that like, ooh, and I've learned to trust that, even if it's kind of crazy and not really rational. What is that gives me that tingle? And so in this moment in the winter, I went down into the basement. It was snowing, and I was in the mountains of my hometown, and I lit a candle, and I closed my eyes, and I tried to feel for the tingle, and I also asked myself this question. I said, because it was a time we were trying to figure out what to do with the band, the Lovingtons, and music, and I had put so much life and even identity and everything into that. And I closed my eyes and I just said, if there were no obstacles, what's the most direct thing you would like to do with your music on earth? The most important thing. And the answers came right away. I was like, I want to bring my music to people that are facing some of the hardest moments, that are on that edge of pain, that we all at times in life are on that edge, that ledge of pain. And, and it just came to me. I want to go to refugee camps, homeless shelters, hospitals, just the general feeling of people that are facing great challenge. And I was like, I want to go bring this music as free love, and just give it as free energy, and to just create a boost. And that was the inception of the thought. And then I think then I was like, we can make it into a tour, and it'll be called the Goodness Tour. And I think those words came right away, and I was like, because it'll be so bubbling with goodness. The whole point would be goodness. Like every day of the Goodness Tour, you're putting all of your focus on goodness. What's the most good you can create today with your skills, your art, your music, whatever it is. And so I called Jeremiah Alexis, I think, is one of the first folks I talked to about it, and he started envisioning with me. Then I had a friend, Nadia Sophia Tiene, who was envisioning with me. And then Benjamin, of course, started visioning. And then I called like the Lovingtons, Lauren Bowley, Jake Shaw, and Joseph Jacks from Harmonic Humanity, and a lot of other. I get kind of scared as I'm doing names now because there's like a lot of other people started talking to, kind of building this. And then in our second tour, there was a lot of other people that came in, like Glenn Shackley and Greg Goad and my cousin Bree, and now we have this whole new huge team that, if we're getting into names, I would want to list off, but we're just talking about the beginning of the Goodness Tour, and of course my family and everyone. And
And now you're speaking in terms of really getting into the unfolding of it, and it's
yeah,
beautiful to see that process, right? That step by step,
yeah,
and where this idea, just sitting with yourself, be like, man, what is the highest alignment? What's the highest good?
yeah,
I'm gonna just focus on that. What's possible from there? Planting that seed, and then kind of witnessing or allowing the universe to start to converge together to formulate to allow for that unfolding. And
yes,
so now, what's the first iteration of the Goodness Tour? Where was the
yeah.
first way that it showed itself in form?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, and Peggy Callahan we were talking to a lot, and my friend Corin McDonald, and um, a bunch of other folks. But the first tour we went from Seattle to San Diego down the West Coast. We played in 17 homeless shelters and tent encampments. We played in several hospitals, um, cancer, um, uh, cancer research facilities for the doctors and the cancer patients. We went to a youth crisis shelter. We went to a handicap center, um, among other things. And I'm telling you, the first day of the Goodness Tour, when we went, I think the first one we played in Mary's Place in Seattle, homeless shelter for women and children. And it was like, after that moment that we shared with all those women and that moment of playing music, and it was at the end, we were just, it was like, this is, you could just feel it. This road's going on forever. We can't stop. This is, and the amazing thing on that first tour is the band was just as high, just as filled up on that tour after each show as we were from the 35,000 people shows with Jason Mraz on his national tour. Uh like we had that same level of like, oh my god, I can go to sleep tonight, like so filled up, because the value, there's nothing like having a mother hug you in tears with her baby in her arms, telling you, you just, you just made my whole day. You just lifted my whole heart. Like, I feel like this whole month is going to be different now from this moment, this music that you guys decide to come play for us. And that's you can't even exchange that value. And that's what happened along that whole tour. Like, it was a total transformation. And that was, what is that, that was 7 years ago now. And we've continued for 7 years, and we did two more tours down the West Coast, and then we went international to a Syrian refugee camp in northern Jordan, and we went to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, the Bahamas recently after Hurricane Dorian, um, Mexico, a bunch of other places that we've just continued to do the Goodness Tour. and yeah, and the Goodness Tour is music and art for people facing adversity. So it's not just music, it's also art, um, even filmmaking and photography. But what we've all found is the power of creativity as a healer
Mm.
and a person that has been through extreme trauma. If you can help find a way to kind of ignite or instigate them to be creative with just what they have or a few tools, there's an empowerment that's created instantly that creates healing, presence, joy. Because okay, I'm kind of going off now, but
Yeah, you well go on.
okay.
Yeah, no,
You
this
know,
is yeah, flow, man.
what I figured out, or like some of the reflections that I would have of witnessing like the Goodness Tour, is I was like, yeah, that is the moment, like when a person is being creative, like a Syrian refugee who, a 14-year-old Syrian refugee who had to walk through war and had circumstances outside of their control take away their their home, their family, everything they've known. They had to walk for survival, and now they're in a refugee camp. Circumstances have all done this. As soon as they start to create, suddenly they're making something that is independent from circumstance. It's coming directly from within them. And actually, it's like one of the one things we have control over. We can create, we can
Mm.
make something. Circumstances also affect it and all that, but it's instant empowerment.
Yeah.
I'm making something. It takes these feelings out too. It does this. Suddenly there's a direction. I'm trapped in a refugee camp that's with just dirt and dusty on the border of northern Jordan. And suddenly I'm writing a song or I'm painting a painting, and suddenly I'm high. I'm filled with joy. I'm dancing inside because I'm making something. I'm going somewhere. I'm traveling.
Dude, yeah, I'm so excited to hear what you're saying there. And I'm like, I'm biting my tongue a little bit because what you're speaking about of what you experienced and just through your own creation, your own context, is a living example of so much that I actually teach and write about when it comes about our understanding of time. And I don't want to hijack the conversation
No,
about that,
please.
but I want to provide some context to it. The really beautiful thing about it is because you don't need to have the depth of the context to be able to actually live it. But what the heart of it is about, when we can look in things in a polarity, a duality, we come from the singularity. We have, right, all is one, the infinite, and from that we experience this duality. We experience multiplicity within this human form. And so there's a beauty of us having contrast, because in contrast we're able to have an experience that is a yin or a yang or a this or a that or what, a sweet or a sour. So from that perspective, when we view ourselves in terms of time, we view time as a finite, quantitative, commoditized thing, right? You can run out of time. We count our time. How much time did it take for me to do something? So you could say, how long did you play on that stage with Jason Mraz? How many people were in the audience? How long was the tour? How much money did you make? How many people were in the shelter? That's how we track time currently, right? It's quantitative. Now we can get into the deep metaphysical piece of it, and that's for a separate conversation. But what time actually is. right? When you understand its own dimension, that it's cyclical, that it's infinite, it is impossible to quantify something that is cyclical and infinite. It can only be measured qualitatively. And in that regard, that's what allows you and your band to have a homeless woman and her baby give you the same value of your time than playing in front of 35,000 people opening up for Jason Mraz. And you can imagine living a life where you measured and tracked your time based on the quality of the experience that you're having. The value of your time in that shelter was just as valuable and well spent than playing in front of those 35,000 people. There's a lot more depth there into what that is, but there's one other thing when you talked about the power of creation, which is really, it's all in line of this polarity and this duality, coming at it in every angle. You're either a victim or you're a creator. Either life is happening to you or you are happening to life. And a lot of people hear that victim word and they might have a derogatory statement, but it essentially says, it's happening to me. When you're a victim, things happen to you, and you are at the effect of your circumstances. When you are a creator, you affect your circumstances. Life doesn't happen to you, you happen to life. And so from that aspect, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. And that doesn't mean that the people in the camps aren't going to feel sad, aren't going to feel pain, aren't going to feel frustration, aren't going to feel all of those sorts of things. But that doesn't stop them from having the ability to tap in consciously to the creator that they are. Because when you come down to it, understanding that all of this, I mean, all of it, right, is just energy manifested into form from an energetic source of creation. And every aspect of you is wholly and fully connected to and emanating from that creative source, whatever you call it. Therefore, every single thing that you do, every thought, every action, every intention, every word is an act of creation. You can't escape it. And even when you experience victimization, you are creating that. So what you are providing, what you did provide, even without all of this context, we could go so much deeper into all these levels and ancient wisdoms and dimensions and sacred geometry and vortex mathematics and all of that sort of stuff. You don't know any, I'm not saying you don't know any about that. I'm saying none of that matters to you. Tapping in to simply that tingle, that source, and what you're reflecting, what you just shared, is the same teaching. Having these people, through your music and your sharing, flip their perspective from victim to creator. And that in and of itself shifts the entire experience, not only of their time, but of their life, to actually say, I have a choice into what my life is. And you did say this too, man. This is such a profound teaching of what you just shared. Ultimately, maybe the one thing we have in this life is choice of our perspective. And so that shift you talked about earlier, that freedom of the mind, the internal paralysis, the internal shackles, is what literally creates the liberation for us individually and then collectively. And you are doing this on a day-to-day basis. And when I just can't stress enough is what this looks like in action. It doesn't matter what the books say, it doesn't matter what the teachers say, it doesn't matter what the context is. That might help to give some frame, but when you just live it, what becomes possible? So I'll take a step back from that, man, but like hearing the way you were sharing it, it's just like, I mean, you're a musician, but that's the teachings, man. That's like the real stuff. You know, that's the heart of it. So it's really beautiful to see that just manifested into actual form, actually being on the ground. And for you to recognize too, what you're doing, you're not, and you know this, and this is for any other buddy who's listening who wants to be a musician or a painter or an accountant, or it doesn't even matter. But the action that you're called to do, you're not just a musician.
Yeah.
You're a bridge. You know, you're a light.
Mm.
And the world changes. The world gets shifted and expanded one person at a time as you can help to have them change their perspective to step into their divinity,
Yes.
their ability to create. And, you know, for me, that's like the one thing that I think for myself, and that's why I'm personally like lit up right now, hearing you share about it. I think for me, man, what can I do? What's the one thing I could do? I could give people this or that, and you could say, oh, I could give them hope. I could do, you know, we could bring some joy, whatever. If you can connect people to their source, to their divinity, to their ability to create their life, there's nothing greater you can do in this world, because from that point, they can choose what their life is. And so the power of the gift you're giving is bigger than hope. It's bigger than joy. It's literally connection to the source of creation.